Evening. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 8 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, September the 27th, 2011, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business to come properly before the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Friday, September the 23rd, 2011, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, the editor at thealternativepress.com and patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Matesic? Here. Ms. Carey?
Here.
Mrs. Clancy?
Here.
Mr. Finn?
Here.
Mr. Friedman?
Here.
Ms. Kerstadt?
Here.
Mrs. Lights?
Here.
Mr. Slater?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Carey, would you lead us in a flag salute, please?
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements around the table? Ms. Friedman.
A total of 96% of the 444 Westfield High School graduates of 2011 are pursuing a higher education this fall. According to a report released by the Westfield High School Office of Counseling Services, 90.2% of students are attending four-year colleges and universities, 4.5% are attending two-year colleges, and 1.3% entered vocational business and other post-high school institutions. The remainder have accepted employment, pursued a military career, or had future plans that were undecided at the time of graduation. The class of 2011 is attending 170 colleges and universities from A to almost Z, from the universities of Alabama and Arizona to Yale University and York College, and in schools that are in their home state of New Jersey to as far away as Canada. We wish all of our graduates continued success and great experiences in this next important phase of their lives.
Thank you. Ms. Kerstead.
I just returned from Westfield High School, where Project 79, the school's alternative education program, held its newcomers barbecue for new and current students, as well as faculty, board members, and administration. The highlight of the event was the dedication of a tree created out of recycled aluminum by the students with help from the art teacher, Roy Chambers. Close to 400 recycled cans were rinsed, cut, and wrapped by hand to create the tree at Westfield High School. The base of the tree was actually created from a solar-powered fountain, which was designed in 2010 by another Project 79 student as his senior project. In the last few weeks, that too was wrapped in the sculptured aluminum. Tonight, Project 79 students and teachers added their individual leaves to the tree. It stands outside the windows of one of Project 79's classroom and demonstrates, as one student explained, how we can all work together. Project coordinator Peter Horn explained that the inspiration for the tree was based on sculptures by Roxy Payne at the National Mall in Washington.
Thank you very
It
much.
was really exciting.
Ready? Yes, thank you. Last week, we announced that the Westfield Public Schools, the Westfield Fire Department, and Safe Kids Union County are partnering to present an important series of fire lessons during the month of October for fire prevention safety called Fire Is. 5 videos will be aired daily on cable TV 36, Westfield High School, and Westfield Community Television, beginning October 1st at 6:30 p.m. The school district will also provide a link to these videos at www.westfieldnjk12.org/video. The Westfield Fire Department has announced that the videos are especially targeted to 6th and 7th graders and their parents, although anyone above the 5th grade level is encouraged to watch them. We look forward to viewing all 5 of these important safety lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, all Westfield Public Schools will be closed on September 29th and 30th in observance of Rosh Hashanah. And the next public board meeting will be held in this room on Tuesday, October the 4th at 8 p.m. We can now recognize anyone from the public on agenda items. Seeing no one approach the podium, Dr. Dillon.
Thank you. We have two superintendent reports tonight. So I have a tip for people. If you're ever in a social situation and the person that you're standing next to and you don't know happens to be an elementary principal, and you're trying to think, well, what would be a logical topic that would start a conversation easily? I have a suggestion, and that would be mention literacy, because elementary principals are consumed with literacy. It's such a focus. It's not the only thing they do, but it is such a focus working with our youngest students. And you can see that tonight. It's not a social situation, but we not only have the supervisor of language arts, but we have the principals from all 6 elementary schools, as well as the principal of the Early Childhood Learning Center in the audience, because literacy is vital to what we do and so important to everything that our children learn going on. So to start the presentation, I'm going to introduce Mr. Tim Harrison, who is our Supervisor of Language Arts. Mr. Harrison.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Dolan. I'd like to thank you for inviting us to speak about this very important endeavor for the Westfield Elementary Schools. Before we begin, though, I would like to thank all the elementary principals as well as all the PTOs that have offered their generous support. This year we are fortunate to have Stephanie Powers working throughout the year with the kindergarten and first grade teachers on enhancing the quality of writing instruction that is delivered to our students. Stephanie Parsons is a nationally renowned author on the teaching of writing in the primary grades. In addition, she has years of experience working as a professional developer in the Teachers College Columbia University Readers and Writers Project. Before we go into the details of the plan, though, I'd like to ask Dr. Cambria, principal of the Franklin School, to just speak a little bit about the history of writing instruction in the Westfield School District.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to speak briefly about why we are proposing this type of professional development initiative in writing instruction at the elementary level. As many of you know, Westfield has a rich tradition of providing our elementary students with outstanding literacy learning experiences. And this tradition of excellence in the area of writing instruction goes back well over 20 years ago. I know this because I was trained in our district-wide writing process shortly after being hired as an elementary teacher in 1989. During my first summer, I spent 2 weeks with teachers throughout the district being trained in the writing process. This program continued for several years and changed the way we look at writing instruction. Over the years, standards have changed, and so have the assessments that measure student achievement in writing. The results of our annual professional development plan needs assessment, completed by our teachers, consistently indicates that our elementary teachers are anxious for updated training in writing that has an organized progression by grade level and matches the rigor of the standards. Veteran teachers, as well as new hires, are seeking additional training. By beginning the training with all of our kindergarten and first grade teachers, we're better able to have consistency from grade to grade and from school to school. This training will guarantee a cohesive approach with a common language and common practices for the teaching of writing. New Jersey has recently adopted the new Common Core standards. These national standards dramatically change the expectations for student writing. These standards require students to write in new ways through a variety of genre. They will require greater expository, argumentative, and persuasive forms of writing. Looking forward, within the next few years, the instrument utilized to assess our students on standardized tests will be altered dramatically to align with the new Common Core standards. We would be remiss if we did not provide these teachers with the appropriate training to enable our students to exceed these standards.
And now Matt Bolton, principal at McKinley School, will discuss the details of our initiative.
Good evening, everyone. We are so excited to be embarking on this journey of continuous improvement in the area of writing instruction. This year, Stephanie Parsons will be working with our kindergarten and first grade teachers to enhance their understanding of a writer's workshop model of writing instruction. Each month, Stephanie will spend an entire day providing professional development in writer's workshop to our teachers. On these days, and during these days, she will lead demonstration lessons within classrooms in order to convey the state-of-the-art teaching methods. She will be coaching our teachers engaged in writing instruction. She will be helping teachers use and learn from systems of assessment, including performance-based assessments. She will be teaching teachers information related to their upcoming units of study in writing. She will also be helping teachers support students with particular needs as they are engaged in writer's workshop. A key component of this professional development model is the use of a lab site classroom. Through this approach, each teacher will have an opportunity to learn the strategies and structures of writer's workshop as they examine student writing and collaboratively plan as they take part in study groups led by Stephanie Parsons. After spending time working in these study groups with Stephanie, the teachers will then push into a first grade classroom to observe Stephanie as she demonstrates the structures and processes that were just discussed in the study group. Throughout the use of a lab site classroom, our teachers will hear and see the management of writer's workshop. They will see the design of mini lessons, methods for conducting writing conferences, strategies for quickly assessing the needs of our students, and ways to immediately address the individual needs of students based on those assessments. This model of training has proven to be highly successful in similar districts such as Livingston, Summit, Chatham, Rumson, Princeton, West Windsor, and Glen Rock, all of whom have also formed partnerships with Teachers College at Columbia University and the Readers and Writers Project to enhance their instruction in writing. Here's what we know. We know that strong teachers need to be extremely well-versed in curriculum so that they make good decisions in their work. We know that strong teachers are created through ongoing and sustained professional development, and that strong teachers lead to success in students. All the research out there right now points to the greatest indicator of student success is the teacher. By allocating funds to professional development, we are investing in this greatest indicator. Over the course of the next 5 years, our aim is to have every grade level of elementary school teacher take part in this intensive job-embedded professional development. In that way, we can ensure that Westfield's elementary school students are receiving coherent and outstanding instruction in writing. I want to thank you all for allowing us to address you tonight. Thank you in advance for your support of this initiative, and we'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Seeing no questions, I will take my seat.
Thank you very much, all of you, for coming. This is really exciting. This is exactly why we all spend our evenings at meetings, is working for the achievement of students, and obviously this is a project that we can all embrace. Each of us sitting around this table recognize how important the well-written word is, and clearly it starts very early in Westfield now. So thank you very much for your effort, and we look forward to an update and how it's going. No other questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you. And now, if there are no other questions, then I see that we're good. Okay, fine. The second superintendent report, then, has to do with the goals. The goals for the district were actually established with the board members working with the administration of the district. And these are the goals specifically for this year, but I don't want anyone to think that they start in a vacuum, because actually everything emanates from the mission statement. And I'm one who believes that you can't review the mission statement too frequently. So the Westfield Public School District, in cooperation with family and community, prepares all students to reach their highest potential and to become productive, well-balanced, and responsible citizens in a global society through educational programs that respect individual differences and diversity. So again, that's the mission statement that wasn't crafted by a few people. This mission statement actually started to be crafted over 15 years ago, and over the years has included the work and the thoughts of well over 100 members, actually a few hundred members of the Westfield community, and it has been recrafted every 5 years based on the original mission statement. In addition to a mission statement, there's a strategic plan to carry us through from 2010 to 2015. And again, we had a large community group that helped work with that. The strategic plan for 2010 to 2015 actually includes 4 different goals. One is focused on student achievement, one on student personal development, one on finance and facilities, and one on communication and community engagement. Going back to the student achievement, it focuses on providing curriculum instruction and programs to prepare our students with 21st century skills to succeed in a global society. The student personal development overarching goal talks about fostering an environment of mutual respect and integrity and educating students to become responsible and caring adults. Under finances and facilities, we want to maximize the efficient use of all of our resources. And under community engagement and communication, we are working to improve communication and community engagement between the school district and all stakeholders. So that was the overarching from the strategic plan. But what's our focus this year under those overarching goals? The first goal comes from the student achievement area, and it talks about developing increased opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math, which is also known as STEM as the acronym. And our first focus will be on increasing opportunities for all of our students. So what are the steps we're going to take to get there? We have been reviewing STEM research with supervisors and administrators, and that work will be ongoing. We have begun to establish a district-wide committee to focus on STEM. At the very opening day for staff, we talked about this goal and asked for people to volunteer, and we're now constructing a team that will represent the different levels of the district and the different areas included in STEM. We are also researching and have been and will continue to research the work accomplished in other districts, researching existing grants and community resources. A few community members have already stepped forward and looking for partnerships. And then we want to build on some existing programs. We do have some district programs which utilize problem solving, which is an aspect of STEM. And also already we have examples of interdisciplinary teaching, and we want to build on those because they already exist in our district. Part of the work will be revising curricula. As Dr. Cambria mentioned a few moments ago, there are now Common Core standards that are shared among a large number of states. Based on Common Core standards, we're in the midst of revising K-5 math, science for kindergarten through 8th grade, and kindergarten to 8th grade language arts. Reason why curricula, not curricula, reason why language arts is included in this is, as was mentioned, that there are changes in focus in the language arts Common Core standards, and some of that focuses on making sure the students are not just reading fiction, which is a wonderful thing, not just writing fanciful stories, which is a wonderful thing, but there's also a focus on the writing in the areas of math and in science and in critical reading and writing in those areas. So it's certainly appropriate. Language arts also participates in the STEM efforts. Ongoing professional development is also necessary, and then because we're fortunate enough to have a very active PTC technology committee that is working cooperatively with the district, we want to make sure we coordinate our efforts with that committee as well. As a matter of fact, as recently as this morning, we were talking with the head of that PTC committee, and they continue to work to try to make things a bit better for our students and to give more opportunities. So that focuses our efforts in the area of STEM for the year. The second goal talks about focuses under the arching goal of student personal development and also some of communication and community engagement. And that is to establish, communicate, and model standards for respect and responsibility at all levels. And we've already talked about this at this table more than once in the recent months. So some of the work we've already done to support and strengthen positive school climate. As anybody who ever catches these meetings on cable knows, we've done a lot of work reviewing and revising our harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy, also known as HIB. Based on that, we've been training the leadership, including the board members at this table, our administrators, and our staff in the new district policy and also in the concepts of HIB and what the research says about harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We'll continue to train staff going forward. We'll be providing additional information to students and to parents, and we're going to be affecting ways to monitor school climate as the year progresses. We're also providing training for staff and students in problem solving and social decision making. People do need skills in these areas. Some of those skills need to be practiced, especially at various age levels. Our anti-bullying specialists have received training in this. Our principal is anti-bullying specialist, met as recently as earlier this week. Our school staff will be receiving additional training, and our students, it's actually already begun, but will continue throughout the year. One of the next things that we'll be focused on, and I believe we'll mention later on in the meeting, is revising the code of conduct for students. So we'll be establishing a community committee. We've already started that work. We'll be convening it, working with the policy committee of the board, presenting it, and presenting it to the Board of Education in December for approval. And after that, we'll be focused on implementing that student code of conduct at all different levels, from our youngest students to our high school students. The third goal talks about making sure that as Westfield High School continues to grow, and we know that that will happen, that we make sure that the students who will be attending in the years to come with that higher enrollment receive the same excellent education that the students who attended when it was only 1,200 students received. This goal falls under both student achievement and finance and facilities. I want to make one point clear. We are really going to see some increases in enrollment, we know that. But our enrollment is modest. You can read about other districts where there are explosions of population and enrollment, and you can read about schools where all of a sudden they have to go on double session because it's so large. We're not there at all. We're going to see some gradual increase, and we don't want to wait till it happens to say, oops, we should have thought of something. So this is going to be a gradual increase, not an explosion of increase, but we want to make sure that we're planning this year before it happens so that we are well prepared for all of our student needs. So we'll be looking to project the high school enrollment, see what the different trends have been. We have trends, but they do change from year to year occasionally. Reviewing, again, the building capacity and the room usage. Reviewing projected changes in the high school requirements, especially those proposed by the state. Reviewing existing curricular programs and determining future needs. A lot of this work, by the way, will fall under the Long-Range Planning Committee. Not all of it, but a lot of it. We'll be then projecting student needs going forward. That will include staffing, programs, extracurricular activities, and support services to support all of the students. Certainly a great deal of work ahead of us, but all of it, in my view, extremely important. It's work we need to focus on, and it is good to announce those goals at the beginning. It's good, I would say, in January to review them and see where we are, how we're making progress towards it, what we've run up against, and then reporting it later on in the year as to how we have accomplished the various goals.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the table? I thought it was interesting as you were making your report and listening to Mr. Bolton and Mr. Harrison, how important our community is in accomplishing our goals. In case it was lost on anyone listening to this meeting on the television, the PTOs have helped finance the initiative for the writing instruction for the teachers that obviously will bear fruit for a generation in our school district starting K in first grade. And as you mentioned, our PTC committee, the parents have gathered, and for the first time in my recollection, that the parent-teacher committee is working for the district as a whole instead of each of the individual schools. And when talking about technology needs and recognizing how it does all build on itself, just like in education, how important that will be to our school district. And that we've got parent volunteers coming who are going to help with a committee to rewrite our code of student conduct. It is how we are able to accomplish so much in Westfield is because our parents are involved, they are part of the system, and we are very fortunate to have such an involved community. So we're busy.
We're busy.
I see lots of meetings ahead. So anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all for coming, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. So I would ask the board to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on August the 30th, 2011, and September the 13th, 2011.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm going to abstain from August 30th. I wasn't here.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mrs. Clancy, Personnel.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to ask for the board's approval of personnel items number 1 through 20.
Second.
Need to be recognized. Madam Chairman does.
Any report?
Questions?
We have one retirement.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Dr. Dolan.
And tonight we have one retirement, and that is the retirement of a longtime paraprofessional, and her name is Lucille Benfonti. Lucille was hired in 1996, and over the years has worked at the high school, at McKinley, Tamaulipas, and Franklin, not only as an instructional aide, but also as an elementary lunchroom aide. And she has enjoyed the opportunity to be with wonderful students and caring staff in her various assignments, and we certainly wish her well in her retirement.
Any other questions or comments on personnel?
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstad?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Matesic? Yes. Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
I am yes, except for number 11. Well, I'll abstain from number 11.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy, Facilities.
No report.
Mrs. Lights, Long Range Planning.
No report. We're trying to get an alternate date for our committee meeting.
Okay. Policies met a week ago, and we covered 3 topics for reporting out to the board. First, we discussed the job description associated with the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction and how important technology is in that particular job in light of the goal that we just discussed. And so I anticipate that there will be further discussion at this table, probably brought forward by you as this is thought through and how the job description should be revised. But I wanted to report out to the board that that topic came up because our policy manual outlines who our administrators are, and recognizing that unfortunately Mrs. O'Neill has announced her retirement, and that we are in the process of looking for a new administrator, that technology was on everyone's mind as it being part of the job.
And to that point, we have worked on, after the conversation with policy, we have worked on revisions to the policy, and they'll be in the board packet on Friday,
Okay.
a draft, and then we can certainly address it at the table on Tuesday, and any suggestions can be made in between Friday and Tuesday as well.
Okay. The second topic was about Facebook and the website. Just for a point of context, Mrs. Lights, when she was the chair of policies, had reported out that the district was running a pilot program with Facebook with the board members, friending the page. My vocabulary, I apologize, is a little limited in this area. So, Facebook, in the interim, has since changed the rules of engagement, so to speak. And when the board passed their resolution to investigate using Facebook, the idea was that it would be the information would come from the school district to the subscriber, and that it would be a no-post Facebook page because of the amount of effort that would be involved in maintaining a post page so that all the information on a Westfield District website was correct, or Facebook page was correct. So having made that decision last February, and then Facebook having changed the way they operate the system, we explored other ways to have the information, recognizing that one of our goals is to communicate better with our stakeholders. And we were fortunate that one of our greatest advocates for Facebook was at our policy meeting that evening, and so the conversation as you might imagine, flowed on what opportunities might exist and what we could do. And so I anticipate that out of ad hoc technology, there will be more reports about what might happen with our website and what else we might be able to do that would incorporate some of the things we were trying to accomplish through Facebook. That'll be more of a web page redesign and not a Facebook page. Does anyone want to add to that report? Does that capture what we did? I think so. Okay. And then the last topic was the code of conduct, so that we... Oh, sorry.
We also talked about a position, a digital media specialist, that ad hoc was going to possibly talk about.
Yes,
right?
and I had just anticipated for ad hoc to get to
Oh,
report
yeah,
out on
I'll
that.
report to that. Yeah, definitely.
So we also talked about a code of student conduct and how we would proceed, so that we're all working from the same base of knowledge. The state passed a statute, requires all school districts to have a new harassment, intimidation, and bullying process policy that had to be in place by September the 1st. This Board of Education has done that. We have had a first and second reading, and it is in place. Where Westfield has the most opportunity to put its imprint, to recognize its value system in this policy, is in the Code of Conduct. So when we started this last spring, that's how we were proceeding, is that we would revise the policy to match the statute, and that the Code of Conduct, of which we have one right now, we have one in place, would be looked at by a group of community members with board members, teachers, administrators, students, and we would work on that document because it is incorporated into the policy by reference. So here's the timeline that the policy committee is going to recommend to the board to proceed. It is now the 27th of September, and it is anticipated, having asked board members to submit names for possible members of this community committee, to have Dr. Dolan put together with the teachers, the administrators, and with the list of names that we provided, and ask for volunteers to, she will solicit their attendance in this and participation in this committee, anticipating that it would be, it would satisfy the statute, which requires that we have a member of the Health and Human Resources, and that we have a police officer, and we have a member from our business community, and all the other statutory requirements. And that committee would meet most likely 2 times between the end of October and the Thanksgiving break. Now, the Board of Education has work to do before that committee will sit down, because as we discussed in the policy committee, it's so much easier to edit something than to write something from the beginning. And we want to bring into that committee the sort of groupthink that has happened throughout the United States even, and definitely in New Jersey, about how a code of conduct can look. So we've been looking at various policies that exist. Mrs. Kerstead found several that she brought forward to the superintendent, and the superintendent will bring 2 policies, a sample code of conduct to look at. It will also be distributed to the Board of Ed. And so all this will run simultaneously. Policies will vet the sample to go to the committee, that the committee will then review and revise in 2 meetings, bring back to policies, who will finalize the document to bring as a recommendation to the Board of Ed in December, so that we can start the new year with a new code of conduct. So we'll have started the school year with the new policy and the new calendar year with the code of conduct. And that's our report from policies. We also did other work. We did review so that tonight we would have the second reading on the concussion policy that we reviewed a month ago. There were very few changes to it. Nothing, it was more for clarification, nothing of substance. It was somewhat grammatical. And I would ask that the board approve for final reading Policy 2431.4, the prevention and treatment of sports-related concussions and head injuries. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Finn, thank you. Are there any questions or comments about that policy?
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mr. Matesic?
Yes.
Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Thank you all. Mrs. Carey, curriculum.
I would ask the board to approve the overnight field trip for Westfield High School choral students to travel to Germany, Austria, and Italy to study the history of music. This sounds like a fabulous opportunity, and it is the inaugural trip. So it's the first time this is happening. It sounds great. The proposed dates for this trip are March 28th through April 6th, and I think we highly recommend to go forward. May I have a second?
Second.
Mitch? Jane?
Oh, fine.
We're going to split.
Put them
it.
both
Take
down.
half a second, I'll take half a
Everybody wants to endorse this.
second.
So, oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question, that's fully funded by the students?
By the students.
Well, that's
Is that true?
Yes, fully funded by the students' parents, that's correct.
Yes, parents.
And it's during spring break.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So exciting.
So we need to vote?
We can vote?
Okay. Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mrs. Slater?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Matesic?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Matesic, Finance.
So the Finance Committee met immediately prior to this meeting. I'll report out on that specifically at our next meeting. For now, I'd ask the board to consider items 1 through 9 on the agenda. A second.
Second.
I would note specifically number 3, item 3, a monetary gift to the Tamaqua School from the Leslie Ann McCarthy Family Fund. We always appreciate gifts to the district. It's very much appreciated, particularly in these budgetary times. Any questions on the items?
Mr. Matesic?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Did he move it? Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record. Is there any report on legislation? Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business? Is there any ad hoc committee report? Both of you?
I have a quicker one.
Go ahead. Let him go first.
Ad Hoc Development
Yes.
Committee is meeting for 7 o'clock next Tuesday before our next Board of Ed meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Last week, when I attended the back-to-school night at Westfield High School, I experienced firsthand the future through the eyes of a very impressive and excited English teacher who, right off the bat, has embraced the best that technology has to offer. A website that's very interactive, the use of social media to tweet homework and test reminders, and most importantly, marrying the curriculum with 21st century skills that not only made me very proud of our recent district hiring, looking for Mrs. Ball, but reminded me that the need to go beyond brick and mortar schooling is certainly here and now. That being said, the Ad Hoc Technology Committee met last week with the district goal of STEM in mind to discuss how we move forward with technology in the 21st century. On a positive note, we have lots of talented people who want to help us get there. At our last BOE meeting, we heard from just one representative, Mark Friedberg of the PTC Technology Committee, who gave us very good insights into where we currently stand as a district with respect to technology and how far we really have to go to help ensure our students become technologically proficient and have the tools necessary to maximize learning. And we have many eager teachers and administrators who know the future for our students requires not only the technological tools to learn, but also a sound base in the ability to effectively utilize these tools to learn. And then there's always the negative, a shortage of dollars in the moment that cast a cloud over those otherwise very positive discussions about what is best for our students. It's the committee's hope that working with all of our constituents and through commitment by this board, we can move forward. So the committee is in the process now of formulating what we think the district goal should be as it relates to the student in the classroom day to day.
And as we began to brainstorm ideas, it became clear, I believe, to all of us that, in fact, this is not just an exercise in raising dollars. It's a massive undertaking that requires all hands working together through various work streams. Infrastructure alone is a work stream. Should we be wireless? Probably a no-brainer. But it's the base of what our infrastructure should look like, so we need to be thoughtful about what the end goal will look like, so we ensure sufficient capacity, bandwidth, ongoing equipment support, and help desk support, just to name a few things. And we need to overlay on all of this a continuous refresh plan so that any dollars we spend today aren't rendered obsolete just a few years from now, and in the technology world, a few minutes from now. Curriculum and policies, yet two more very important work streams. What practices will the district deem acceptable? Should students be allowed to bring in their own devices, for example? How can technology best be taught? Or does it need to permeate all aspects of the curriculum? And if so, how is that best achieved? And then there's the key work stream, which requires our teachers and administrators to be well-trained and engaged in all aspects of what will come to be known as the district's technological revolution. We can only succeed here if those who nurture our children every day with a solid dose of education are ready, willing, and able to do so with the tools that we provide them. So you can see the committee clearly has its hands full. It's just, right now, I'm just giving you a 2 to 3 minute overview of the many hours of conversations that have yet to occur with all of the constituents and all of the board. We need to approach this as a project management exercise in a proportion that this district rarely sees in public, drawing all of us together not simply to raise funds, which is yet another critical work stream, but to make it all really happen in the near term. So I look forward to presenting more updates with more concrete details for the board's consideration. Tonight, I'd like to ask for 2 specific items of the board and administration to consider. First, I would ask the Finance Committee to start to look hard at what funding a rolling technology plan would look like. Where can we find some room in an already overcrowded budget to make this a priority, a reality? Second, I'd like to ask the administration, and my guess is Peg may say that Barbara Ball is best suited to handle this, to look at what other districts like us are doing with respect to hiring a district-wide digital media specialist or supervisor, a key component, we believe, to our future success. And I also wanted to let the board know that the committee has instructed our district technology specialist, who was at the meeting, Brian Walker, and helped me prepare this report, to do a wireless survey of the district now to determine the number and optimal locations for the wireless access points to provide appropriate coverage for each of the schools. Thank you. Any questions, certainly, we can talk about it.
So just to make sure, yeah, maybe we should break that down for a second.
Okay.
In the simplest terms, the members of the committee are, Mitch is leading us, Roseanne, Rich, and myself.
Right.
And we are talking about a broad-based strategy for moving forward. And that strategy is the support of the PTC's Technology Committee interest and endeavor. They have a 2-pronged plan that they are looking to see how it might fit in with district needs and monies and timing. And that 2-pronged plan is refresh and replace computers and provide a district-wide wireless environment. So given those 2 pieces of information that we are now sitting on, the ad hoc committee looked at what should the goal of the overarching goal of the district be to accommodate or propel those 2 things, in what manner, at what pace, with what desired outcome. So we looked at the biggest possible picture as our, really, our canvas.
Right.
Understanding competing priorities, budgeting constraints, and trying to acknowledge that if we were to give a proposal at this table, what would we want it to look like at the highest level and then at the more practical, implementatable level.
implementable level. Implementable and maintainable.
And with respect to your request to the Finance Committee, I can tell you we've already started those discussions, and they will continue because they are an integral part of the big project you just highlighted.
Excellent.
Just to go on 1 second, I think the Ad Hoc Technology Committee realized that to put a big strategy in place is to gain stakeholder acceptance and understanding at all levels. And we understand that this is a rollout of major proportion. So we have been working on words, concepts, and ideas that can be communicated easily for acceptance and comfort to this community at this table, our overall community, our staff, administration, those who would be touched directly, those who will be touched by the overall outcomes of success for children. So we're thinking at the highest level so that we could have some real statements of intent that would carry us to the future.
In that conversation, just so it appears to me from the three, and having sat in finance earlier this evening, that focus is going to be on the conversation about wireless,
Correct.
and the conversation will be about how to achieve a goal over time for the entire district because in years past, we have had that sort of 5-year rolling technology plan where we would replace this many, then this many, then this many. It was a little like painting the Brooklyn Bridge, then we'd start over. And finance has gotten in the way, but that idea has existed in this school district before, so in an effort to revitalize that so that we get back on and stay current. Okay?
But I think Roseanne will speak to this very eloquently, and it really is about the driving force of curriculum.
It's not only about refreshing
No, it's not only about the
devices
tools in place.
and having a plan for staying up to date with the technology, but it's a plan to embed the 21st century skills into the everyday lives of our children, and how that will, if we all come to consensus, how that will be the norm for every child in every classroom, for every teacher. So it's not only about staying current with the devices or the hardware, but staying current with what you do with it and how you can expand the classroom's walls.
And how learning is achieved, and how learning really doesn't have boundaries anymore, but can be what connectivity does for you, what literacy of technology and tools does for you. We're looking at devices as tools, but we're looking to curriculum as leadership, as to what direction, what tools need to be in place in order to accomplish the curriculum that we desire. And then supporting that,
Right.
what professional development, what standards, what policy expectations need in place to manage that environment.
This clearly will involve a number of different committees on this board. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this. Every major committee on this board will touch this one way or another. And I think that's part of the goal. And the other thing, I don't know if I said, but I just think it's really important to point out, is that the head start that we got from the work that the PTC Technology Committee, I can't say enough about the time that these folks spend, parents spent, with Brian Auker in preparing the data that gave us, we didn't have to go, from point A to point B, and we were halfway there, if not more, from the work that they did. And I can't thank them enough and say enough for really the start that they've given us here, and how important that is, and critical, and how, crucial that is to this whole equation.
And I would just point out that it's a perfect fit with our goal for STEM, with technology and engineering. We don't even have any engineering courses right now, and to even develop them, you have to have the technology that's going to make it work. And so I think that's a good fit.
Excellent. It's very
We also discussed more concrete things like the website. and different options for updating our website and making it more interactive and user-friendly, and really a resource that parents and students would go to get the information that they need right away. And we discussed a few things, possibly going to outside consultants who take on the role of really managing, redesigning, PR, all the different aspects of a website. And then we also talked about possibly having a discussion with our current web provider, and also who might be in charge of really organizing that on a district level. Would it be a digital media specialist if we were to hire one? Would it fall under the new assistant superintendent? Would it be an instructional? Who knows? But we did talk also about very concrete, specific ideas, so to get things moving.
And tying in social media through the websites, and which is the example I gave that the English teacher was doing at the high school, which I thought is just a beautiful way of putting it all together. And I think that's something worth evaluating and investigating what else is being done.
Exciting stuff. Thanks very much.
So not to get lost in the conversation, could we have some sense of whether or not we could have information about what other districts are doing for a webmaster or digital media specialist? Can we assume that that research will be initiated?
Sure.
Thank you.
Liaison reports?
I have a liaison report. I was at the Library Board Trustees meeting last night, in keeping with the technology theme. There were two highlights in that area. The library migrated to a new software system the week of September 11th. Training and final implementation took place over 4 days from September 11th through September 14th, and things are working smoothly. And then one I think that's pretty interesting, and kind of keeping with how technology is enabling every part of our community. Phil Israel, the director of the library, announced that shortly they'll have an option on the website to download digital books to Kindle, so I thought that was pretty cool. So check it out. And the third thing, highlight October 1st, this Sunday, I believe, or Saturday, I should say, at 3 o'clock, there's a dedication of the mural in the library that maybe folks have seen starting to be painted, and I guess it's taken a while, 3 years, I think, in creation, if you will, and that dedication is 3 o'clock on Saturday, October 1st.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I attended the Green Team meeting last Monday, as well as the festival. The Green Team had a booth set up this past Sunday. And also to note that the folks that run the festival have gone very green. And you will notice that you really haven't seen a lot of the advertisements posted, but they certainly got the word out through electronics, because there was a huge turnout. So they're still getting the word out, and they're doing it in a green way. So I congratulate them on that. And the only other news from the Green Team is the Conservation Center now takes electronics, if anybody is interested. They've rearranged their site, and they're working to really improve the recycling component of it, and you can now drop off electronics. And they have applied for a grant to hopefully, through the Sustainable Jersey program, to try to get more funding to really do a lot of work in that area, because it's a large space and it really has the potential to take a lot more recycling. And that's about it.
Thank you. Jane, does that include batteries?
Batteries not included.
It's usually separate.
Batteries not included.
Yeah, it's usually a separate.
But I mean, they're definitely working towards.
I'll get there. You let me know when they take
And every
batteries.
once in a while they do have a battery,
I know.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
I'll be there October 14th or 21st.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one.
Dr. Dolan and I attended the Garden State Coalition of Schools Board of Trustees meeting on September 21st. And after the normal business, Dr. Dolan, Lynn Strickland moves very quickly for me. You might want to comment on some of the things. She talked a little bit about the legislation and what was likely or not likely to be coming up on agendas, what was going to make the calendar and not make the calendar. But the meat of the meeting was Dr. Barry Ehrlichson, who works for the New Jersey Department of Education. Her title is Chief Performance Officer. She is the state data manager, and she spoke about the data system that requires every school district to download performance data, achievement test data from all of our students, and she told us about improvements that the state is making to their data analysis program for the information that districts could soon start to see, so that so districts would actually be able to, once testing becomes better aligned, there will actually be the ability to track student test outcomes year over year. And Dr. Dolan, perhaps you would, from your more intimate knowledge, give us a little broad. What did you take away?
I actually think you did. I think you did a good job. But the I always try to view it from the point of view as a parent. If you have a child who's, say, in, we'll say, 6th grade, and so you look at their test scores in mathematics starting from 3rd grade, and you kind of expect that those numbers are aligned. So you expect to see a pattern. But the fact is the New Jersey tests aren't really aligned. So if you happen to be a parent who looks at your child's scores and say, well, why did it go up and then down and up and down? Part of it is the test doing it. So the challenge is, while those tests are not aligned vertically, a 260 in 3rd grade is not the same as a 260 in 4th or whatever. And yet right now the federal government requires all states to show a growth model. So because they're not vertically aligned, nor are they horizontally aligned, you cannot compare a math score with a language arts score. It would be an understatement to say it's a challenge to do a growth model. But they've looked to see what other states are doing, and they're basically choosing a model that's being implemented in Colorado. And so, let's see if I can do this easily. What they're basically doing is taking previous year scores and dividing all students in New Jersey into basically 10 peer groups. And then from that, within a peer group, ranking students as to how much growth they showed this past year, or coming years as they work on this system, and ranking those students and getting a percent for where the student falls. And that's what you would receive. Compared to all the other kids who had similar backgrounds, similar test scores in years past, how much growth your child saw by percentile. So that's their planned system for showing growth, which is different than a lot of other states, actually. But that's what she was presenting, and it is supposed to be released at a certain point. This year it sounds as though it's more going to be like a trial, so people in the districts throughout the state can take a look and see how it functions and provide the department with feedback regarding it. So
not only will scores showing outcome ability on a specific test be available, but probably more important to the parent and to the school is a student achieving a continuous growth year over year, or is the growth slowing? And if the growth is slowing, meaning the progression of test scores, then that is also an indicator for further scrutiny of instruction and achievement outcome.
And one of the challenges with that is it only gives you relative growth. It doesn't give you absolute growth. Not to become too technical, that's not the point of this, but it only gives you relative growth, and that's going to be hard to.
Is it growth in comparison to the other people in that band?
The model student group, which is the group that you were in.
So that's not your growth, your individual growth necessarily. That's
comparative to the
whether
group.
You're moving ahead in your group, like going
That's
up
right.
the line.
Yes,
That's exactly right.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. But
All right,
it
just
is
making
a...
sure I understand that.
You're
I mean,
absolutely
you
right.
can see growth
Okay.
from
guess it depends how you
scores
define
year over
growth.
year.
Yes.
But you
And what
can
kind of
also see
you're
growth
interested in. Okay.
from a, as you say, from a peer group, a cohort.
But you're right, it's a very different way of looking at it, and I think most of us, when we think of it, we would expect that it showed absolute growth, and it doesn't.
So I guess it's really more, it's less for a parent or student to gauge whether they are in fact learning a certain amount year to year. So their knowledge base, in theory, is growing. And it's more for school districts to look at, well, our children in our peer group are moving up in the percentage points.
And I'll apologize, but to your point, the thing that, not quite, because then when you get to school level, they put those different percentages from different peer groups together and get a median. So if you were able to keep the peer group second, I would absolutely agree with your statement, but they put them together and just get a median. So does it tell you something? But yes, it does, but not what you were suggesting, unfortunately.
Did they discuss in the margin of error in Colorado?
No, actually, I intend this weekend to read a little bit more about Colorado.
Yeah.
So will this affect AYP this year? Is
It
this
does-
data gathering for?
It does not affect AYP. It's an additional piece of information.
Okay.
Yeah, and my understanding from her, sounded as though decisions were still being made down there in Trenton, but the impression I got was that this was more of a trial year.
Yes.
So,
And that it might have an impact on New Jersey's position relative to No Child Left Behind and measurement outcomes that would expect in the future.
Right, then there's the whole issue where, they've just announced a whole waiver processes for No Child Left Behind,
Exactly.
and that's still being defined as to what that is and how each of the 50 states will implement that.
But to be frank, some of the questions that we're supposed to be looking at are, she's looking for feedback from schools. How should the state report the data? What are the schools looking for? What are the districts looking for? So this is a strategy that's in place and with expectations for using this model, but it's also a time to gather feedback. So the first year, it will be a piloted process, and districts will be able to look at the outcomes, and then more data and more interrelated information reporting will be forthcoming. But the state is still looking to see how do schools want the data reported at what levels and for what uses.
More to come.
More to come.
She's a bright woman, and she was easy to listen to, so it wasn't all bad.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other liaison reports?
Oh, I don't have a liaison report, but am I allowed to ask a question about the superintendent's report, even though we passed that?
Oh, all right.
Well, I understand.
Be old
I don't
business.
think so quickly.
Stay with us.
That's not exactly the definition, but Ms. Kirsten.
Stay up with us.
I was wondering how we were going to monitor school climate. Have we decided, are you in discussion with different administrators? How are we moving on to monitor school climate, and who are we monitoring? Is it students' perceptions, parents' perceptions, teachers' perceptions?
The anti-bullying specialists and the principals met as recently as if today is Tuesday, that was yesterday that they met, and part of what they're talking about is how they are going to. There certainly are a number of instruments that are out there. A decision has not been made on which one, and I doubt it'll be the same one for various levels. I think it'll be different for different levels, but they have begun the process of looking at that. And that's actually part of the work that the school safety teams, that's part of what they do.
So they'll be looking to use an instrument that's already out there. We're not going to create our own. We're just going to...
That's my understanding. I mean, we
Okay.
might adapt one, but yes, we're going
Right.
to look, because a lot of it does exist already, as you
Right,
suggest.
right, right. And
Yep.
someone from the public sent us one
Right.
today. So that was interesting. So I was wondering if we haven't decided yet, they might want to take a look at that.
Oh, sure, yeah, they're still being looked at.
Right. That's good. Sorry. Thank you.
With no other liaison reports, we could recognize the public for questions or comments on non-agenda items.
I'm Barbara Scrose, 7 Sandra Circle. I'm here tonight representing bus route E7. First, I'd like to thank you for making some changes to our route. A second bus was added. This has resulted in our bus route going from 17 stops down to 11 stops. The route is now linear and no longer zigzag. The children are now picked up 7 minutes later than previously picked up. It was requested that we look at taking alternative routes home to avoid bottlenecks in town. That was addressed as well. So I think we're making strides in the right direction. However, a second bus doesn't answer all the outstanding issues that still remain. 2 weeks ago, I asked who takes ownership of the busing project, and I still don't know. Is it the transportation office? Is it the business office? Is it rolled up into the Board of Ed under strategic planning? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's one person who can answer all the questions. I understand Vogel was present at one of the meetings earlier this week, along with, last week, along with neighborhood representatives. I think it's great that we're in touch with Vogel, but I don't know, are they making the routes? Is the transportation department? I'm just not sure where it lies. I think the bottom line is, let's resolve some of the issues. We're sending in emails to lots of people with very few responses. I think parents are frustrated with one-way communication, everything going into either the Board of Education, Business Administration Office. We've been provided with the Vogel telephone number, but I'm not really sure if it's appropriate to call them where there's other people who have responsibilities in place. We can email the board, and we don't know how much to give the board. Are you aware of what's really going on? 2 weeks ago, people were unaware that there were 17 stops on this given bus. A few more examples of behavior, if you will, that's going on the bus that I think everyone should know about includes bus drivers not stopping at their designated routes. If they overshoot a bus stop, there's been occasion, they've put the bus in reverse, the red lights are on, children are on the bus, and they're going backwards. Don't think we want to be doing that. Bus drivers have been on their telephones. They've had an earpiece in. Unless there's a medical emergency or if they're seeking directions, I would think that they might want to pull over and stop the bus to make sure everyone is all right. But there has been repeated days of bus driver having an earpiece on, speaking a second language, and not really knowing what's going on the bus. No wonder bus stops are being missed. Prior to the school year beginning, I called the transportation office and tried to get a better understanding of how the bus schedule works as a new parent to a busing student. I was advised that we do not publish reverse routes because the bus, you get your schedule and you just follow it. That's the way the bus is going to be taking the kids home. A end time or a drop-off time was never given according to the transportation office. We've been doing this for years. We never publish an end time. All you do is look at the schedule in the morning, figure out the number of minutes, do the math, and your child should appear. Well, we've been pretty lucky so far. However, I've been advised that the bus route home has now changed for the E7. The bus driver told the children, if you have any questions, have your parents call the Board of Education, because in the morning they are picked up in a chronological order, stop 1 through 11. Monday was the first day of the new route that was instituted for E7, and the bus in the afternoon goes something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 8, 7, 10, 11. Which means the bus is not following the same route home, as we were told that the bus has been doing this for years. We never publish the reverse route. When I spoke to the transportation office this afternoon, I was told that, yes, the bus route has changed. I was concerned. I understand this is just day 2, but we've been asking for communications. There are 5 buses going through my respective neighborhood. One from 2 private schools, the high school, Edison, and I believe there was a Roosevelt bus there this morning as well. In the afternoon, I think it's reasonable to know what bus is my daughter getting off at? At what bus stop? Should I be looking to the right or to the left? What busy street might she be crossing? If there is a change in the schedule and it's due to safety, I understand it. I'm a fan of that. However, if there are changes being made by the bus driver or haphazardly or not being communicated to the parents, I think this is a potential problem. We received the new bus route last Thursday, and it was then implemented on Monday. That's great. It was an email, and then we had time to digest it. I think we can communicate via email effectively, but we just need to know what are the rules, what's changing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I don't know whether Mr. Neer wants to jump in also, but if there's a change, whether it's on the run-in or the run-back, it should be communicated. It certainly should never be haphazard, unless you have streets blocked and something terrible happens in town, and then obviously someone's going to have to change something. But short of that, if there's a change because something is better, because as you said, efforts have really been made to try to make things better. So if something is being done to try to make something better, that may be fine, but it should be communicated to the parents so that the parents are aware of it. I absolutely agree.
I mean, it all goes down to who's calling the shots. Is it the bus driver? Is it the Board of Ed? Are the parents being heard? I think the parents are being heard. However, if we're looking to make additional improvements, there's still work to be done. I believe that the result of meeting with Vogel last week is that once the new routes were put in place, they would reevaluate the pickup time, and if we need to push back the pickup time, we might be able to do so.
Correct.
Who's watching out for these kids? Is it the parents who are supposed to determine when the buses get to school?
No, I can absolutely assure you that there are charts being done of the exact time where buses are being picked up, when they're arriving, when they're leaving. Mr. Unier has been collecting that information every single day, and certainly this is the second day, as you said,
right,
of the new route, so I wouldn't say that's enough information to make a change,
Absolutely
certainly,
not.
but it's absolutely being collected.
Okay.
being collected, being studied, so that determinations can be made. Initial thoughts are just what you said, that probably we can push back the times, but 2 days is not enough time to make that determination.
And not looking for a change, but just looking to gather information and then
Right.
who does it go to? And one of the initial questions from day one is why can't the bus be at school at 2:47? This E7 bus is chronically late. This is now day 15 of busing. If the bus was there 5 times before 3 o'clock, I think we're being very generous. I don't know if this bus driver has another job, if the bus is coming through Garwood. It really should not impact why is it not there. The kids are getting anxious. When I was there on last Friday in the rain, there was no bus. Once again, the vice principal cannot watch all the kids who are ready to board a bus. The kids had to take shelter waiting for the bus to come. It's inexcusable.
May I? So Vince, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I was going
Is that, okay.
Yeah, I was going to respond. Yeah, the bus came today at 2:40. We have changed. They did have another route before that E7, and we requested that be changed. It was unacceptable. So yeah, they came 2:40 today, and they expected about that same time every day.
Great, thank you.
Related to some of your other questions, the Board of Ed, we create the routes in conjunction with the bus company. And that was done over the summer, primarily our transportation coordinator, Jenny. She works under my direction. We are, working now on the routes in terms of when the buses are getting to the school, when they're getting in the afternoon, and so on. And as soon as we get enough information together, we'll make adjustments where we can in terms of picking up the kids later. And we are working on making sure that the routes, the outgoing routes are the same, the reverse of the incoming routes.
Okay.
How do we know that they're following the routes correctly if we don't have someone on the bus? We're finding that out from the students and from the parents who are waiting at the stops and watching the buses go by. Is that correct? So is there a way, until we get this straightened out, to have somebody on each bus?
I'll get on the bus.
I mean, if you're looking for volunteers, I'm sure we could get some, but it's almost when the principal is in a teacher's classroom. Is the bus driver going to be on the telephone?
Well, that's
and-
unacceptable. So there needs to be, I think, somebody on the bus until we get this straightened out. It's dangerous. They shouldn't be on their headphones, and we shouldn't expect 6th through 8th graders to have to worry about that. So I'm suggesting that somebody ride the bus. I mean, somebody in the district, or I don't know who. Maybe it's not possible, but something's not working, and I don't know what it is. And my child's not on the bus, and I'm frustrated. So I can't even imagine.
Well, I did ride one of the routes, and it worked out well the day I did it. But what I'm telling parents is, if there are any problems, such as headphones and so on, to let me know immediately, that day, so that we can pinpoint exactly who it was, when it happened. Because sometimes, I get complaints that are kind of generalities. It's difficult to follow up on those. But if I can get specifics right away, we can address it. Yes, that's not appropriate.
And how does Vogel address it?
By talking to the drivers and making sure that driver is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we've had drivers removed from routes because we weren't happy with their performance.
So the issue of putting someone on the bus came up last week as well, and we didn't do it. But is there somebody we can put on the bus? Just to drive the bus home, and they'll do it until the bus driver gets it right? And I don't mean, Vince, you do it at one time. I mean, somebody needs to just...
Not always the same driver, though. That's been the problem. It's not always the same driver, and it's not just because of performance. They've just been switching the drivers, which they promised when
And I
we met
told,
that they wouldn't do
and I was
that.
told it would not be the case, you know, but.
There was somebody different on the E14 bus than the last.
Right.
So, I mean, stuff happens.
That
but
happened to be the
Fixing temporarily isn't fixing.
I know.
Excuse me, I'm not at the podium, but can a parent volunteer to get on the bus and ride the bus?
No, I guess an option that the district could have would be to hire someone to ride a bus. I mean, district could decide to do that. I'm not sure that's an effective way to make sure buses are run well, but the board could certainly decide to do that.
Could we possibly tap into maybe the Edison PTO or the PTC, someone who may not charge us a fee, who may have a common interest in the children's safety? I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. We said the busing, the redistricting would not cost the district any money. We're now up to 4 buses. I'm sure nickel and dimes are going to add up quickly. We're lucky that we found the money, but it's a problem that needs to be looked at, and why pay for it if we could have, you know, I'd be willing to ride a bus that my daughter's not on so the bus driver doesn't, you know me. We can divide and conquer if that's an acceptable suggestion.
I think we should get somebody who looks like a student to get on the bus. Not the adult.
We can address, we can address the issue. We can address it.
There you go, Julia. Put on some sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
Bless your heart.
I'll do it too.
So I guess as a question.
Excuse me.
As a-
Backpack, a bus driver's not going to know the difference.
So as a question for the board, if you could look at that issue of whether
Yeah.
a parent could ride on the bus, I doubt that it actually is
Right.
allowed. Right, so for no other reason, we've been talking about the bullying policy, they don't have training, required state training to do that. So, but
But we can certainly look into it, yes.
I'll look into it.
And I guess the last thing on this is, how much more rope do we give Vogel? I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and we're back here, and I'm just wondering.
Well, maybe that's another thing, is the
Yeah.
potential to look into then what are the options?
Right.
And if you do take the options, what are the ramifications of doing that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been thinking about that.
What about paying a teacher or a para per diem, you know, or for an hour extra over their day until the routes are straightened out? So
I think
if
that's
we
part of
can't.
what we said we'd look
Oh,
into.
okay,
Yeah,
if we
we'll
can't
look
get it right
into
in 2
We'll look
weeks,
into
then.
it. Right.
So, Mr. Yanaro, the phone call should come to you rather than the transportation office. I'm not sure. When there is an individual situation, because when I've called the transportation office, often the calls after a very quick conversation, the person on the other end either becomes very abrupt, defensive, or is very anxious to transfer the call to her supervisor. Attempts have been made to end conversations. Well, thank you very much for calling. Well, you know, the list is not complete yet. These are, may seem as minor points, but when a child is dealing with this, it's concerning
My suggestion is probably the better way to email.
to you.
You can email
Okay.
to me and/or Jenny.
Okay.
That's fine. With as many specifics as possible and as timely a manner as possible. It makes it much easier to deal with.
I mean, we're asking our kids to text us when does the
Right.
bus arrive? When does it
Right.
leave school? Are you in our
Well,
neighborhood?
we-
No, we've missed our route. These kids don't
Right.
want to hear from the parents.
Right. Well, we are monitoring the times the bus arrives at Edison in the morning and the afternoon. You know, the bus company also has a GPS system. They can tell us to the second when that bus arrives and so on. So we are monitoring that.
And as you mentioned, the assistant principal at Edison is there
Right.
and checking with the students. If there is something that he hears, that the students say something, that's immediately reported to Mr. Yaniro. He's following through as well. So people are following through with the information and seeking out the information to make corrections. And as you noted, a number of corrections have been made.
Okay. I mean, and, is it noted that buses are pulling over and stopping on their way to school?
And that was one of the things that was noted in
Yeah.
an email and was received, so that it could
And
be checked.
that has been corrected. The
Yeah.
driver thought he was doing the right thing, but he was not.
Yeah,
and
to pull
that-
over and wait while the kids can be home sleeping is,
Right, right. Yeah, that was inappropriate.
So, come back in 2 weeks, or could we get clarification on the E7 bus route? Are we following it 1 through 11 on the reverse route, or are we taking a detour?
Well, we should be, unless sometimes there's a reason not to go exactly in the reverse because of traffic or whatever. But for the most part, it should be reversed.
Could you look into that?
Absolutely,
And yeah, because I
absolutely, right.
believe it was conveyed that this
Okay.
is the new route.
Okay. Okay.
We don't have a real strong busing history in our neighborhood because buses were denied to our neighborhood a few years ago. It certainly wasn't under your jurisdiction, but people are aware that busing is not always put at the right priority on the plate of things to be handled. So I thank you for handling it in a diligent manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Smith, 17 Woodbrook Circle. I just have one more to add to Bobby. I know I spoke to a couple of people today that had returned my calls. Thank you very much from the Board of Ed. Through all this, there was just one more thing to add that I guess through the meeting with Vogel, however it happened, that the bus drivers were, I don't know if it was last week or this week, when the bus driver was now rushing the children onto the bus and telling them to please hurry up and get on the bus because there has been complaints that they were running late. Now, on top of my child personally, the last thing he needs is anxiety. So now we have to wait 10 minutes before for the bus to arrive or after, but now, God forbid, they're not standing there waiting. If they're running to their locker that's, on the other side of the school, they have to be in panic mode now to jump on the bus because there's complaints. The bus driver has no right to tell my child that. And I will speak for the other 46 children on the bus because now he gets off the bus and comes running in the house and says, oh my God, we had to hurry up and get on the bus because there were a lot of complaints about everything, and I don't go home and discuss adult situations like this. We were just trying to figure out the busing, and I said, it'll all get intact, don't worry about it, you missed the bus, Mom will be there in the morning, afternoon, we all have carpools, all the neighbors back each other up, and, were you aware of that? Was any of you aware of that? Did anybody get an email on that one? Or did that go to the transportation Jenny? And did she forward that to you?
You're talking about the
The driver of the bus. We're telling the children to please hurry, sit down. We have to leave because there are complaints that this bus has been
Yes, I
running
did
late.
hear about that. Again, I need to know specifically when it happened.
Well, I don't know. Every day something is happening, so I'm not really keeping track of.
Well, that's inappropriate. I mean, obviously, he was under pressure to get moving, but, again.
And again, I spoke to Dr. Dolan tonight, and I'm a very laid-back parent. I have 4 children, aged from 31, 21, 19, and 13. I've put them through the school system. The high school bus has been late a gazillion times in the years that I've driven, but that they have taken the bus. I have picked up, dropped off, picked up, went back, went there, they've gotten on the bus. I have never been before a podium. I have never complained. I have never made a phone call. But this is beyond unacceptable to me. This is ludicrous. And when you call the transportation department and you very nicely ask a question, like would it be possible for Vogel representative to appear at a Board of Ed meeting and you get back from a professional person who works for the Board of Ed that I'm not calling the Board of Ed, you call them, I would have fired my employee with 400 people underneath me as my job. And I know that someone said that they apologized for them, and that is unacceptable to me, and I will not sit with that, and I do not want an email. And in this room, in front of all these people, I will expect a phone call from Jenny that I personally want an apology for the way that she spoke to me. Because it is totally out of line.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I guess I am doing that. We listened, and we're certainly not going to get into a situation where we're going to talk about an individual employee in public. You've already told a story,
that's
and
fine,
we all
but
heard it.
Who do I go to then?
And I
Who do
did
I
speak
go
to you
to?
earlier, and I did talk about this.
Right,
I
but-
did say I would follow up on it. I said that earlier.
Correct. So
Right.
who do I go to next now when there's another bus issue? Because everything is unacceptable. Am I supposed to sit every day with my busy schedule, with us all under stress and pressure, and say, okay, let me write this down now and that down? Who do I address with a problem?
You just Mr. Yaniro.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through the process. You give me specifics in a timely manner, and I'll address them.
Okay, fine.
I hear you.
And the bus driver won't make comments at our children anymore? Hopefully, when you address it?
As I said, I will address every issue you raise. You've told me that often.
All right. Is there anyone else? Okay, we do have a private session this evening, so I'd ask the board to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purposes of discussing personnel, litigation, or negotiations, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. All those in favor?
Aye.